Right. They
And
might all
so,
be, they're so leveraged, some of them, like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. I mean, I
yeah,
just
for
started
sure.
getting credit cards like last year. I mean, financial abuse is a huge part of my story. Where like when I went to college, I wasn't ready to go, and I've never really been financially independent. But my parents argued over whether I should have a credit card and determined that like I would be spoiled if I had a credit card. So I developed this like fear of like debt, and so it's like I'm just starting for
Mm,
the last couple of years of building my credit. Now, to my credit, I also didn't like get a bunch of credit cards and like max them out and bury
right.
myself in debt. But
Ruin
it's like,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like this, like, I feel like a financial child a lot of times.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Cause that's kind of how it starts, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
start by getting a bank account and a credit card and
Yeah.
establishing
Yeah.
yourself in terms of capitalism,
Yeah. Yeah.
and who
Yeah. I
you
mean, where
are.
I
And
come from, kids were getting their credit cards at 16 or whenever they could, so,
yeah.
because their parents, some of them were spoiled, but it was more about an acknowledgement of the kind of financial reality that we live in, where credit is a fundamental part
Right.
of doing anything really. But
Right. Right. And not to shift gears too much, but and speaking of your dad, I'm curious how Father's Day was for you yesterday.
fathers, I don't think too much about him. I called my stepdad, who I reconnected with, who has dementia I hadn't seen in 10
Mm.
years. And so
Oh, cool.
that was really actually quite healing. It was kind of intense because I had to, he had had a fall and got hit by a car or something and like had a
Mm.
surgery on his brain. And the wound got infected. So I had to take him to the hospital and he ended up being there for a week.
Mm.
But yesterday I just called him. I didn't really think about my dad too much. I think I'm thinking about him more today.
Mm.
When I think of him now, it's kind of weird because like I've almost forgotten, like it was such a challenge to define the abuse and kind of like share the experience. But as time's gone on and the anger kind of subsides and my memory of him fades, I find myself almost idealizing him again and like just like feeling like I miss him in a weird way. I mean, my dad's
Mm.
like an interesting guy because he doesn't really care about people, but he wasn't like particularly cruel or like he's really quiet and like
Well, he was kind of a spiritual narcissist, right?
yeah, his
Like,
wife is
yeah.
malignant, and so his wife
Okay.
would like kind of like I was supposed to live there in 20 when I was 21. They had like the world's most abusive intervention. I had dropped out of school because my girlfriend broke up with me and I had a kind of autistic trauma meltdown. And my mom arranged this intervention. And so, they all kind of lied. But I was like, oh, my family's never been in a room before, so I'll do this. And then my dad,
So, oh my
it's like,
God.
it's so fucked up, but it's like, that's all I ever wanted was my mom and
Dude, I
dad,
can relate. Yeah.
and so they said it's all about the family. If you don't do this, your family's going to abandon you, kind of ripping open the abandonment trauma. And then the day after the intervention, my dad goes, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm going to Hawaii and I'm not coming back till you're out because this is too heavy. And so
Mm.
he comes back when I get out. I was supposed to live with him for 6 months. And after about 2 weeks, he goes, my wife doesn't want you here. I got you an apartment. Your bags are packed. We're leaving right now.
Hmm.
And
So
so
he didn't stand up to her at all. He just did
no, and this
whatever.
would
Yeah.
happen over and over again where she would kind of make the parameters for him being a good husband, for him being a bad dad. And she would
Yeah.
play, like when she came on the
Yeah.
scene, we stopped going on vacation with him.
Mm.
They would say, oh, it's because you just get drunk and throw up in the Ritz-Carlton, lobby. And one, one year I slept in some girl's hotel room the night before we were supposed to leave and fell asleep and like stumbled into the lobby where like all the bags are packed. My dad's like, we have to leave right now to get the plane. He's like, you had a great night, didn't you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, your sister and your mom are so fucking mad at you. Don't even
Oh
talk
my
to them.
God.
Like,
You're like, man, I'm
but
just being
like,
a teenager, you
well, yeah,
know?
exactly. I'm like 16, 17. We're in
Yeah.
Mexico. I was bringing acid like everywhere. So I was a handful,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
it was the existence and to my dad's discredit, he chose her, right?
Right.
But
Right.
like without her, things are very different. Like with that restraining order I talk about,
Interesting.
she
Yeah.
wrote the complaint. He signed it. It's her handwriting, her
Oh,
experience. Because I went at her on Facebook. This secret son kind of popped up. My dad
yeah.
wouldn't talk. So I'm like, well, to get to him, I'll go through her. And she used to say, oh, you're born on third base and think you hit a triple. And like
Mm.
I commented on one of her posts, you fucked your way to third base and think you hit a
Oh, God.
triple.
That goes
Uh,
over well, right?
yeah, 3 days later, a cop shows up with this restraining order, but it's her handwrite. Like, so I don't even know
Right.
if she did that and like forced, I don't know, but he ended up going through with it. But it's like, I don't want
Oh,
to let
that's
him off the hook
interesting.
because he chose her. And I think in his business career, the story was his partner was a raging narcissist. And
Mm.
like the employees liked my dad, but he hides behind all of this stuff,
Yeah.
right? And like, their
Yeah.
accountant goes to prison for embezzlement because he says, oh, like, John and Wesley, my dad promised me all this money and, like didn't pay me.
Wow.
And,
I mean, do you think it's interesting you said that you're kind of in this phase of where you're starting to idolize him or, think of him in that way. And I've had that. My mom was malignant narcissist, but
yeah,
it's like these people are so complex, just like as we
right.
become so complex. But, my mom was, as I hear you talk about your dad, my mom was so incredibly charming. Like people loved her. And she was started as a nurse and became a lawyer, but she was an incredibly generous, giving human being, like helping people and that stuff was all very real.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but then there was this other part, and it's like I've found myself I don't know if I'd say idolizing her, but kind of like really being able to see the the different parts of her
Yeah,
and
yeah,
feeling like that part of her that was so generous and so kind and so empathic was more of like the real part of her that before
yeah,
she went through the trauma she went through and I
yeah,
believe it was real and I believe like I have actually found myself missing
yeah,
that
yeah.
part of
My
it, which
dad
is such
gave
a
me
weird
hundreds
feeling.
of thousands of dollars. Like there
Yeah.
was a
Wow.
codependent relationship.
Yeah.
And I've seen him wanting to be a good dad, but he can't do it. And so what he
Right.
misses is that he created this dependency that he's so judgmental of.
Mm.
And that what I needed wasn't money, it was a dad, right? I mean, even in these
Right.
restraining order complaints, it's like all Chris wants is money. It's such an abusive position.
Mm.
But there are like when I see myself, I see him. When I talk, I hear him now. Like I'm starting to look more and more like him. Who I am
Interesting.
is a product of wanting to know him, right? And not
Right.
realizing this yoga stuff and meditation stuff was just a mask he wore. But also, I like you with your mom. I also think it's real. Like I
Yeah.
think there's like
Absolutely.
it's like Darth Vader. Like there is like I went through this really intense period when I was really kind of, maybe a year or two sober and really started. I went off my meds and I said, you know what, I have to sit with whatever is going on here. And it got really
Mm.
scary because I was like cutting myself and self harming.
Mm.
And I realized it was like, will somebody look at me? Will somebody care about me? And
Right.
so he said, can I come down and help you? And I said, yeah, but like, can you help me in the way that I need help, right?
Mm.
Like we've been down this road. And so he says, yes. And he comes down and I pour my heart out with all this new understanding of trauma. I mean, he had given me The Body Keeps the Score. He gave that book to me,
Oh wow.
but then discounted that trauma was my story. And he looked at me after pouring my heart out for an hour or two and he said, I just think you should get a job. And
Oh
like,
fuck.
I said, and I said, where? And he goes, Foxconn, which was this Chinese company that makes iPhones that was on the front cover of the newspaper every
Of
day
abusing
because they
people.
totally, they bamboozled our governor into something. And I said, did you just take like
Oh
the one
God.
company on the front page of but I could see in his eyes, like he wanted to be a good dad, but that's what I mean when they can't see outside their own perspective.
Yeah.
To him, perspective, I cost him money. The fact that he gives me money upsets his wife. And so from his perspective, all my problems would be solved if I just had a job. Now, did I need a job? Sure.
Right. But
I mean,
that's not the answer to
yeah,
you
I
like
mean, is it totally
expressing
inaccurate?
all of
No, but
that.
he also like wouldn't give me a job. Like he expressly forbid me other than interning with him from a career in the music business, which,
Right.
his label, he's like, well, it wasn't a family business. Yeah. Okay. Well, the company shut down. Yeah. Okay. But it's still run out of Blue Note Records.
Yeah.
Like
Could have been.
he could have very easily provided a pathway. In the intervention, my stepmom said like, oh, you think your dad's going to give you some high paying job in the music business? And that's all she said. And I'm thinking like, where
Mm.
the fuck isn't this about my drugs and alcohol?
Yeah.
Right? Like, but
Yeah. Sounds like she was projecting quite a bit there.
She was projecting, but
Yeah.
this is the thing. It's like, this is the difference for me between like experiencing these people in a romantic relationship where they're essentially replaceable. You can find another girlfriend, find another wife, husband, boyfriend, and looking up that as parents, because we see the limitations for real, right? This is why
Right.
I kind of push back on this idea that they do this stuff on purpose, because I think when we say they do it on purpose, we're almost like ill defining what narcissistic abuse is, because we're kind of like framing it through the lens of intentional psychological abuse.
Well, it presumes an awareness that doesn't exist, right? I
It
mean,
doesn't exist. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like when we see them as parents, I mean, did my dad intentionally say, I want you to get I think you should get a job to hurt me? No, it was the limitations of how he could relate to other people and
yeah,
how he could perceive like problems other than through the lens of how it directly affects him. And that's
yeah,
the tragedy. I mean, if my dad, it's like, if the one things could have been different, it would have, he could have been a great dad. But like, he's a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher that didn't teach his kids yoga,
yeah,
surfer, windsurfer, skateboarder, didn't teach his kids any of that stuff, record company executive, didn't offer his, he just
yeah.
hoarded his
Could have been a
life.
pretty fucking incredible
When
experience
you talk
for
about
a
music, my
kid.
dad would give me tickets to any concert ever. I remember we went, and he didn't really go much after my wife or his wife showed up, but like, I was about
Mm.
14. He took us to see U2, the Zoo TV tour,
Oh, wow.
and Public Enemy opened for them. I saw Public
Oh,
Enemy in
shit.
1992 as a 14-year-old. And to my
Oh,
credit, I turned to
man.
my dad after Public Enemy was over and I go, we can go now.
Yeah, that was enough.
U2
I'm
was
good.
great, but it was like, yeah, it was kind of a joke.
Oh,
But
man.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But to me, this is part of the healing, though. It is like there is this like hoarding of our own of the misery. Like we want so badly to be seen in the trauma, but eventually the trauma will either consume us or will start to flesh out that the
yeah,
experience was complex and the experience had all of these different emotional components to it. And only through that kind of acceptance of the whole picture and the acknowledgement that, yeah, you know what? I've spent 5 years talking shit about this guy in a certain way online. I mean, I actually told him in an email what I was going to do. I said, I'm going to make you famous
internet famous.
as an archetype for a narcissistic abuser. I said that to him in
Yeah,
an
well,
email.
I
Um,
mean, that you pouring your heart out in that moment and him saying get a job is like such a boundary violation and misattunement of your
yeah,
humanity, you know?
yeah,
So yeah, that's
yeah.
a valid response. Like, fuck you, dude. I'm gonna,
Well, and then the restraining order was like
yeah, that's a whole other level.
so profoundly traumatic for me that I didn't even realize in real time. I was at a point where I walked in there, felt nothing. I don't know how I did that, but now,
I mean, it's
it's
such a deep abandonment.
yeah.
It's like,
But a
I can't,
part of it, and I have the restraining order complaint. I can't look at it, but part of it gave me clarity in a certain way. They
yeah,
think they were seeing me, but they were seeing a distorted version of me. They were seeing this
right.
anger that had to come out, but I saw them, and I realized, like in that moment of get a job, it was like this. I saw in his eyes, like I saw care and concern and this desire to like be a dad. And then what came out of his mouth was just such a microcosm for everything that's wrong with his understanding of, for all of his meditation. I mean, he meditates to shut the world out, not to kind
Mm,
of, you
yeah.
know, I
Yeah. I
mean,
don't think, I think a lot of people sometimes think that, and maybe it's true that there's no, these kind of narcissistic personalities, like um, there's no consequence. But I don't necessarily believe that. I mean, I saw consequence in my mother. I
mhm.
saw pain and suffering, and I saw confusion, and maybe it reaches a point where that filters away, and it's not there anymore, and all that's left is kind of the pathology. But I don't know. Do you think your father felt consequence of his behavior or the lack of relationship?